cousins, Ike and Lynn and Julia Maria and my tia Rosa, for sharing their memories with me. My uncle, Tío Meme, who survived his prison experiences, often asked me if someday we couldn't write a book together. This is not the memoir he envisioned, but it is a fictional way to keep my promise, to give testimony. In the Dominican Republic, there is also the tradition of saying thanks, gracias, to our patron saint, la Virgencita de la Altagracia. Gracias to Altagracia for helping me write down this story. Chapter 1. The Eraser in the Shape of the Dominican Republic. May I have some volunteers, Mrs. Brown is saying. We are preparing skits for Thanksgiving, 2 weeks away. Although the Pilgrims never came to the Dominican Republic, we are attending the American school, so we have to celebrate American holidays. It's a hot, muggy afternoon. I feel lazy and bored. Outside the window, the palm trees are absolutely still, not even a breeze. Some of the American students have been complaining that it doesn't feel like Thanksgiving when it's as hot as the 4th of July. Mrs. Brown is looking around the room. My cousin Carla sits in the seat in front of me, waving her arm. Mrs. Brown calls on Carla and then on me. Carla and I are to play the parts of 2 Indians welcoming the Pilgrims. Mrs. Brown always gives the not-so-good parts to those of us in class who are Dominicans. She hands us each a headband with a feather sticking up like one rabbit ear. I feel ridiculous. Okay, Indians, come forward and greet the Pilgrims. Mrs. Brown motions toward where Joey Farland and Charlie Price stand with their toy rifles and the Davy Crockett hats that they've talked Mrs. Brown into letting them wear. Even I know the pioneers come after the Pilgrims. Anita, she points at me, I want you to say, "Welcome to the United States." Before I can mutter my line, Oscar Mancini raises his hand. Why the Indians call it the United States when there was no United States back then, Mrs. Brown? The class groans. Oscar is always asking questions. United States, somebody in the back row mimics. Lots of classmates snicker, even some Dominicans. I hate it when the American kids make fun of the way we speak English. That's a good question, Oscar, Mrs. Brown responds, casting a disapproving look around. She must have heard the whisper as well. It's called poetic license, something allowed in a story that isn't so in real life, like a metaphor or a simile. Just then the classroom door opens. I catch a glimpse of our principal, and behind him, Carla's mother, Tia Laura, looking very nervous. But then Tia Laura always looks nervous. Papi likes to joke that if there were ever an Olympic event for worrying, the Dominican Republic would win with his sister on the team. But lately Papi looks pretty worried himself. When I ask questions, he replies with, "Children should be seen, not heard," instead of his usual, "Curiosity is a sign of intelligence." Mrs. Brown comes forward from the back of the room and stands talking to the principal for a minute before she follows him out into the hall where Tia Laura is standing. The door closes. Usually when our teacher leaves the room, Charlie Price, the class clown, acts up. He does stuff like changing the hands on the clock so that Mrs. Brown will be all confused and let us out for recess early. Yesterday he wrote, "No homework tonight," in big block letters above the date on the board, Thursday, November 10th, 1960. Even Mrs. Brown thought that was pretty funny. But now the whole class waits quietly. The last time the principal came to our classroom, it was to tell Tomasito Morales that his mother was here for him. Something had happened to his father, but even Papi, who knew Señor Morales, would not say what. Tomasito hasn't come back to school since then. Beside me, Carla is tucking her hair behind her ears, something she does when she's nervous. My brother Munding has a nervous tic too. he bites his nails whenever he does something wrong and has to sit on the punishment chair until Papi comes home. The door opens again, and Mrs. Brown steps back in, smiling that phony smile, grown-up smile when they are keeping bad news from you. In a bright voice, Mrs. Brown asks Carla to please collect her things. "Would you help her, Anita?" she adds. We walk back to our seats and begin packing up Carla's school bag. Mrs. Brown announces to the class that they'll continue with their skits later. Everyone is to take out his or her vocabulary book and start on the next chapter. The class pretends to settle down to its work, but of course everyone is stealing glances at Carla and me. Mrs. Brown comes over to see how we're doing. Carla packs her homework, but leaves the usual stay-at-school stuff in her desk. "Are those yours?" Mrs. Brown points at the new notebooks, the neat lineup of pens and pencils, the eraser in the shape of the Dominican Republic. Carla nods. "Pack it all up, dear," Mrs. Brown says quietly. We pack Carla's school bag with everything that belongs to her. The whole time I'm wondering why Mrs. Brown hasn't asked me to pack my stuff too. After all, Carla and I are in the same family. Oscar's hand is waving and dipping like a palm tree in a cyclone, but Mrs. Brown doesn't call on him. This time I think we're all hoping he'll get a chance to ask his question, which is probably the same question that's in everyone's head. Where is Carla going? Mrs. Brown takes Carla's hand. "Come along," she nods to me. Mrs. Brown leads Carla up the side of the classroom. I follow, afraid I'll burst into tears if I catch anyone's eye. I look up at the portrait of our benefactor, El Jefe, which hangs above the classroom, his eyes watching over us. To his left hangs George Washington in his white wig, looking off into the distance. Perhaps he is homesick for his own country? Just staring at El Jefe keeps my tears from flowing. I want to be brave and strong, so that someday, if I ever meet the leader of our country, he'll congratulate me. "So, you are the girl who never cries," he'll say, smiling down at me. As we cross the front of the class, Mrs. Brown turns to make sure I'm behind her. She reaches, and I take the free hand she is holding out to me. We ride home in the Garcia's Plymouth, with the silver fins that remind me of the shark I saw at the beach last summer. I'm stuffed in the back with Carla and her younger sisters, Sandy and Yo, who've been taken out of their classes too. A silent and worried-looking Tia Laura sits in the front next to Papi, who is driving. "What's happening?" I keep asking. "Is something wrong?" "Cotorrita," Papi warns playfully. That's my nickname in the family, because sometimes I talk too much, like a little parrot, Mommy says. But then at school, I'm the total opposite, and Mrs. Brown complains that I need to speak up more. Papi begins explaining that the Garcias have finally gotten permission to leave the country, and they'll be taking the airplane in a few hours to go to the United States of America. He's trying to sound excited, looking in the rear-view mirror at us. "You'll get to see the snow." None of the Garcia sisters says a word. "And Papito and Mamita and all your cousins," Papi goes on. "Isn't that so, Laura?" Sí, Tia Laura agrees. She sounds like someone letting air out of a tire. My grandparents left for New York at the beginning of September. My other aunts and uncles were already there, having gone away with the younger cousins back in June. Who knows where Tío Toni is? Now, with the Garcia cousins leaving, only my family will be left living at the compound. I lean forward with my arms on the front seat. "So are we going to go too, Papi?" Papi shakes his head. "Somebody has to stay and mind the store." That's what he always says whenever he can't go on an outing because he has to work. Papito, my grandfather, started Construcciones de la Torre, a concrete block business to build houses that won't blow over during hurricanes. When my grandfather retired a few years ago, Papi, being the oldest, was put in charge. As we come up the driveway to the Garcia house, I see Mami and Lucinda and Mundin waiting for us. Somebody must have picked up my older sister and brother at the high school so they can say goodbye to the Garcias.